Okay. First, hello to everyone. I'm Georg Takamadze, Doctor of Business Administration, Batomisha Tarustavale University. It's Georgia. Maybe you know this is our country, and to have some about Georgia. And as you know, this COVID pandemic affected to all countries, and especially it was very difficult for our countries. And I want to present my research about regulations and the regulations affecting the business profitability in Georgia during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have some topics, but I will be short today because I'm on the next conference also today, and I will be very short about introduction, about period of declaration of COVID as pandemic and government regulations and regulations, and also about business sector challenges. And let's start. It's well known that the government exercises its powers by means of various mechanisms, and while state decisions in different fields are being reflected by checks on legal documents that regulations or regulate these particular issues. And because of this, I divide my research in some parts. It's a period of declaration of COVID pandemic, and it was post-pandemic period. I mean, it was first very strong regulations and restrictions and government new regulations and business regulations, and then start this business sectors and challenges. Because of this, I will start like this. In March, as you know, in 2020, after the declaration of the new coronavirus as a pandemic by the World Health Organization, different manuals were issued for various areas of business on the necessary measures to continue activities. States were challenged to make quick and tough decisions in terms of force majeure situations that were mostly universal around the world, as they were based on the recommendation of WHO. Regulations affected those areas where humans had to communicate and was the main object of actions. Such regulations severely directly impacted various economic areas and specifically business entities, being significant for the economic stability. And business is an important part of the economy, is especially affected by the political and economic processes. The state has a crucial role in the process of development of business entities. The role of business entities in its terms is also of great importance for the process and the results of economic development of the country. We can move in next topic. For the first time in our country, on the basis of the decree of President of Georgia on measures to be implemented in connection with the declaration for state emergency throughout the whole territory of Georgia. As of March 21, 2020, a state of emergency was declared, and its validity period was determined up to 21 April of 2020. And it was some very important parts. First, it was healthcare, the protection of health and lives of population. And second, it was economy, the management and recovery of the Georgian economy in the face of the global economic crisis. And third was very important topic of safety, protections of citizens. And fourth, it was supplies and logistics, the management of an interrupted supply of foods of the population. The economic growth and the economic growth included into the coordination council has worked on anti-crisis plans since the beginning of the pandemic, which was final based on three main precepts. Namely, it was elevating the daily challenges of citizens, helping supporting business, and creating appropriate tools to quickly restore the country's economic situation. The government of Georgia introduced its anti-crisis economic recovery plan with measures for upcoming phase. It's April of 2020. The pandemic affected all sectors, but it should be noted that in particular negatively impacted those regions having the main economic activity in a direction, only the main source of income in this very segment. In case of our country, the incomes of the residents of major autonomous republics and different depends of international tourism. It must be noted. And touristical companies were dramatically impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, especially the hotels, being major dependent on the international tourist flows, incoming tourism, I mean. In terms of such force majeure and critical situation, it's very difficult for companies to adapt new situations, since the hotel business is totally dependent of people accommodations. The only way out was to transform into COVID hotels. That was done by a part of hotels partially and covered the operation costs. It was an important decision that ensured small but valuable support to a hotel business. As you know, in some countries there was a COVID hotels. After a positive test, people were sent to these hotels for isolation and for 5 till 10 days. And I mean, this kind of hotels in our country. And it was very big support to business because government was paying this cost to private hotels, and it was some kind of support to business, let's say like this. And also was very interesting activities carried by the state. It was 4 months property and income tax of the companies were deferred until 1st November 2020. And also government, according to government program, budget was 171 million gel. This is approximately $60 million. And also taxes have already been deferred from more than 6,000 companies. 6 months credit interest payment will be co-funded by small hotels. Also, this was a government program, and they was co-founded this credit interest payments for 6 months. Also, 90-day custom clearance 10 for imported cars extended to 1st September. Also, this was supporting program, and the budget was approximately 15 million lari, and approximately 38,000 importers were have benefited with this program. Also, changes to small business development grants. The maximal grants increased from 20,000 till 30,000 lari, and this is government grants, and every year government supports small business. But this time they increased this budget 50%, and it was also very big support for business and care for citizens and their financial supports, caring for the economy and assistance for entrepreneurs, and also and about the health system also was very big support, and approximately 350 or 51 million lari were spent for these programs. In general, World Bank significantly defends of the complexity of the crisis, since the rigid methods of the managing companies in the state of crisis, quick and urgent decisions, intuitive risk measures will lead both social and economic processes, while the issue of ensuring the protection of fundamental human rights and freedoms into great danger. While the state allocates large sums of money from the budget to back up business entities, its preserved business sector having overcome this crisis will greatly help the state's economic process and the quick recovery in the long-term perspective. Another thing to be mentioned is that the business sector will get a feeling of protection and support from the state, and will take more responsibility regarding the taxes and business process administration. At this stage, one thing is clear: force majeure has been overcome and has already turned into crisis, which in turn, unlike force majeure, is a manageable process and its development can be predicted. And now we are in crisis process. force majeure is finished, our regulations and restrictions is cancelled. In our country, for example, now we have very little list of these regulations, but we are not using masks now. In transportation also we are not using. Also we have not some big COVID cases. For example, in last week it was 1,000, but very simple COVID cases, and business is wake up. Touristical situations is well and turned into data's 2019, and our results now in touristical field is better than it was before this COVID pandemic. And state economic growth is well and more than 10%. And now we can say that this government supporting program and all these measures was very important, and it's really played a great role for recovery of the situation. And also, I want to know that acknowledgement that work is financed by Ministry of Education, Culture and Sport of our Autonomous Republic. That there is one program, promotion of higher education, participants scientific events with a grant, and for this research I use grant and I present my work, and I hope we will have good experience with you, and we will continue working with your company, I mean organization, and I will be invited in your future activities and conference. I'm ready to work with you, and thank you very much. It's interesting and it's very good to cooperate with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Georgie, for your wonderful feedback and presentation. Indeed, thank you. Rotate your mobile or something.
Yes.
Yeah, now go ahead. We can see.
The topic is existential crisis in the life of the female protagonist Anupama in the novel Mahashweta by Mrs. Sudha Murthy. I am Mrs. Rajeshri Deshmukh. I am a research scholar in Sant Gadge Baba Amravati University, Amravati, Maharashtra, that is in India. The title of my paper is Existential Crisis in the Life of the Female Protagonist Anupama in the novel Mahashweta by Mrs. Sudha Murthy. Now, this paper deals with literature and the role of existentialism in the writings of Indian English writers. This novel, Mahashweta, is written by Mrs. Sudha Murthy. Mrs. Sudha Murthy, the name needs no introduction. So we are here dealing with the existential crisis in the life of the main character, Anupama. Existentialism is a philosophical theory and movement that started during the 2 world wars. It deals with the problems of human existence. It emphasizes that human beings have to create their own essence out of their complex existence. Human existence is full of absurdity, dread, and despair, but man must move towards an authentic existence by creating his own essence by his power, potential, and prowess. So existential crisis means the problems of existence when a person reaches the phase of self-questioning, questioning the value system, beliefs, and the order of the universe. It includes the inner conflict, the feelings of insecurity, loneliness, and worthlessness that people face. It is a moment of awareness of who am I? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? This happens when a person is standing at a crossroads, and it is a turning point in the thought process. So Anupama is the heroine of this novel, Mahashweta. Her background, she is the daughter of a village school teacher. She loses her mother very early in life. She grows up with a stepmother and stepsisters. She stays in college hostel for her education. She thrives on scholarships throughout her career. And she plans to complete her education, do a job, and help her father financially to repay the financial loans and get her stepsisters married. Anupama, we will see her personality traits. She's a brilliant and a talented girl. She is good at singing. She's passionate about the subject Sanskrit language and literature. She's an expert at dramatics and acting. She's academically very strong and intelligent girl. She has a very large and good friend circle, and she is mature and thoughtful for her age. Now, what happens in her life? We'll see the journey of 1,000 miles. Dr. Anand, a handsome, brilliant, and rich doctor, is fascinated by Anupama's acting prowess and charming personality in a Sanskrit play. Both of them decide to get married, they enter wedlock, and they dream of living happily ever after. Immediately after 2 months of marriage, Dr. Anand has to go to England for higher studies. Anupama stays back with her in-laws at Lakshmi Nivas. She is supposed to join Anand immediately after Diwali, after performing the Lakshmi Puja, that is 3 months away. The Lakshmi Puja goes on well, and she is excited to join her husband in England. But now we have the turning point in her life. A piece of live coal falls on her foot during the Lakshmi Puja. She pours cold water on it. After a few days, a white patch appears on that place. Anupama is scared and consults a doctor. The dermatologist confirms it is leukodema, and in medical terms, he says it is a mere pigmentation, defective pigmentation of skin. Anupama is shattered, shocked, and apprehensive about the future. She secretly starts the doctor's treatment and hopes to be cured soon. Nobody in the house knows about these developments. The beginning of the end. In a very dramatic and cruel turn of events, Anupama's affliction is revealed before her in-laws. She is humiliated, ostracized, accused of falsehood, and finally sent packing to her father's place. Back in the clutches of her stepmother and stepsister, she is shaken by the village gossip and false fabricated stories that are spread around. She writes to Dr. Anand with great expectations that he, being a doctor, knows the nature of the disease. She is confident that he will set matters right. She waits expectantly for his reply, checking with the village postman every day. Anand does not reply to her letters. He maintains an intentional, awkward silence. Anupama's stepmother asks her to go back to her in-laws. Anupama's presence at her father's home is the reason for the breaking of marriage ties of her stepsisters. She is unwelcome everywhere, considered a bad omen on ceremonies and auspicious occasions. White patches appear all over her body. She is physically mad, emotionally hurt, and mentally broken. Her husband deserts her. She has nothing to fall back on and nothing to look forward to. So now she has entered this phase of existential questions. Is it my fault that I got the white patches? Is God punishing me for some sin in my previous life? Is this affliction the result of my karma? Doesn't God have anyone else to trouble? Who is responsible for my suffering? Is it my fault that I'm a poor school teacher's daughter? Who says that life is fair? Are all the marriage vows fake and false? She is caught in an existential crisis. Even God is deaf to her prayers. She worships the divine power in various forms as Allah, Jesus, goddesses of all faiths and regions. As a last try on some well-wisher's suggestion, she goes to the village goddess on a hill to offer flowers to her for 21 days in the hope that goddess will bless her and her white patches will disappear. On learning from the village gossip that Anand has come back to India and agreed for a second marriage, Anupama's last hope is broken. She feels like ending all the pain by jumping off the cliff besides the temple. She ponders over a plight and thinks of the various options in front of her. When life is a cruel agony, death is certainly a relief for her. She faces the existential angst, dread, and despair. What did she have to look forward to? Nothing. As long as she lived, she would have to face hundreds of problems, and she would be a burden on her father and a bane for her sisters. Sabaka's taunts would only add to her misery. Anupama could see only one way to solve all her problems. She gazed at the ledge. It was only a few steps away, and death was waiting. What is required now was a little courage. After all, what did she have to live for? She has many questions, a bag full of questions with her. Would Anand have behaved similarly if his sister or mother had caught the disease? During the end of the novel, when Anand meets Anupama, this is what she asks him. I am also somebody's daughter. Did you worry about my future? Suppose you had got leukodama. Do you think I would have left you for some other man? A marriage is a lifelong commitment, for better or for worse, till death do us part. Wasn't that you had said to me before you left for England? Where was the place she could call home? Would she find kindness and trust anywhere in this world? When she reaches the temple of the goddess, we have a comeback, the real Mahashweta, the white one. Suddenly, she feels some positive energy coming from the goddess and she decides to face life head on. From now onwards, there are no negative thoughts with her. She moves to Mumbai with a friend Sumi's help. She gets a job as a Sanskrit lecturer in a college. Directing Sanskrit plays is an important part of her job. She's back to her favorite vocation. She regains her sanity, self-respect, and lives life with dignity. She now looks at life with gratitude, composure, and peace. She refuses and rejects Anand's pleas for reconciliation, reunion, and repentance when he approaches her during the end of the novel. So we see the resilience and the bounce back phase in her life. She says yes to life and no to death. Now the past does not matter for her. The future holds a promise. Now for her, the setting sun is not the end of another day, but it is a pleasant reminder that a cheerful dawn is on its way. The bird, once bruised and bleeding, now soars confidently in the blue skies. This is a message of hope for those with white patches. A bend in the road is not the end of the road. Thank you. Presentation is over.
Yes. Thank you, Rajeshri. I would like to go ahead with the next presenter there. I think, yeah. So, next presenter, I would like to call upon Tanya Bharadwaj. Do you have Tanya?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Please share your presentation.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. My topic is Buddhist moral principle and ethics for healthcare providers. The purpose of my study is that despite Buddhism's long link with healing arts, little consideration has been given to the ethical difficulties that arise from the medical practice. A modest number of volumes are available to let us know about the problems and the challenges that occur in medical practice. This study connects those challenges to the insight from the Buddhist philosophy that can be applied to improve the situation. There are analogies in the sutras that represent Buddha as a doctor, Dharma understanding as a treatment, and all lay people as patients. Holistic care should be prioritized because disease occurrence is intimately tied to one's psychological, physical, and spiritual wellness. Buddhist medical literature established moral principles and ethics for healthcare providers, which are based on the Four Noble Truths. That is, there is suffering, the cause of suffering in clinging and ignorance, and it is possible to eliminate suffering through the practice of Eightfold Path. Medical ethics has been become increasingly relevant in the dialogue between modern science and Buddhism, as improvement in modern medical technology produce increasingly difficult situation. There is an area where ideas on human life, ways of thinking about life and death, meeting patients' demand, and the dignity of human life must be addressed directly. In today's materialistic commercial society, there's an ever-present spiritual void. The vast wealth of science accumulated as a result of science power and success has failed to instill genuine happiness, mental well-being, and virtue in mankind. Disease occurrence is intimately tied to one's physical and spiritual as well as society, culture, and environment. It is not enough to approach medicine in a way that just eliminates symptoms. The psychosocial components of a disease as well as its mind-based cause and treatment must be prioritized. Harmonization of all these parts is required for the holistic care. Healthcare ethics are crucial because professionals must recognize healthcare challenges, make sound judgment and decision based on their values, and adhere to the laws that govern them. Buddhist philosophy provide valuable insight for the physicians. Buddhism has been intimately connected with the profession of medicine from the beginning, with both concerned in their own manner with healing and elimination of human suffering. Given the tight relationship between Buddhism and medicine, it should come as no surprise that the Buddhist ideology has a strong influence on medical ethics. What should be done and how to take care of a patient share common ground in Buddhism and medicine. Because of the nature of the nursing ethics tend to investigate the ethics of caring rather than healing by investigating the everyday interaction between nurse and person in care. Good communication is the key in any successful relationship. Communication with parents is with patients is therapeutic, and it has been demonstrated to be helpful as drugs in the treatment of a chronic pain. Accepting a patient's pain and anger without becoming irritated or intolerant can provide huge emotional advantage to those suffering from severe ailments. Being sensitive and compassionate aids both the physicians and the patients in dealing with the situation in a positive manner. These abilities enable the physicians to comprehend the patient's perspective and incorporate it into the treatment. The Buddhist ethics of speech are entirely consistent with the well-known universal concept of ethical communication, which consists of four components, that is, mutual cooperation, open-mindedness, honesty, and respect. Buddhism, as a religion, is distinguished by its ethical devotion. According to Nirvana Sutra, Buddha attained complete enlightenment and became a supreme healer. Generosity, superiority, self-control, compassion are important Buddhist values that should inform the practice of any profession. Informed by these virtues, a medical professional should always act in accordance with these four fundamental characteristics, that is generosity, dan, kind speech, piyavach, helpful action, and impartiality. Another excellent trait that the medical profession can employ both in their professional as well as personal life is vigilance. It is the ability to remain conscious of one's responsibilities. It is claimed to be made up of both energy, that is virya, and mindfulness, that is sati. The Buddha's definition of sati was simple. It means keeping something in mind, that is, recalling the object on which you want to focus your attention. They aim to present in each moment. They don't let ideas, memories, anxiety, or hope stand in the way of their progress. Being mindful of everything one sees, hear, feel, taste, or smell is a practice. Achieving the best possible outcomes for the patient and the family require nurses to be in the peak physical and mental health. According to the American Nurse Association Health Risk Appraisal Survey, 82% of nurses believe that they are at a high risk of illness owing to the working stress. When dealing with tough people and situations, mindfulness practice can help nurses attain more satisfying end. The nurses realize that anxiety is not necessary and the problems can be managed more efficiently. Mindfulness-based training can assist nurses in developing skills to handle clinical stress and enhance their health, increasing overall attention, empathy, and presence with the patients and families, and experiencing more satisfaction, peace, less unintentional overtime, and less job burnout. The Buddhist literature Dhammapad says, is not to do any evil, to cultivate what is good, to purify one's mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. This is verse 183. Act as a guide for any healthcare practitioner. The first and the foremost concept, not to do any evil, is the principle of non-maleficence, which implies not to being the source of any harm. The second principle is beneficence, is expressed as to nurture what is good. A practitioner should always behave in the best interest of the patients. The next two principles can be summarized as to purify one's mind and to include the respect for autonomy, that is the patient's choice to refuse or accept the treatment, and justice, that is fairness and equity in dealing with patients and in the distribution of the healthcare resources. According to the National Library of Medicine, nurses are the patient's advocate who must strike a balance while providing the patient's care. There are the four major ethical principles as described earlier. These are autonomy, beneficence, justice, and non-maleficence. And I would like to conclude by saying that Buddhism is generally regarded for its generosity and compassion, as well as its respect for both living and non-living beings. To reclaim personal self-esteem and societal respect, the modern medical fraternity must integrate the old age Buddhist thought and draw inspiration from the Buddhist values. Thank you. And these are the sources that helped me to write the paper.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation and good research work, spirituality and Buddhism. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. I am Indra, and my colleague Nida Olvia here at the conference, and I'm glad to be here. And I would like to acknowledge that this presentation funded by Research Directorate of Gajah Mada University Indonesia to the 2022 FTA grant. Okay, now I would like to present implementing akhlak culture of state-owned enterprises in Indonesia, the role of authentic leadership and distributive justice climate. So akhlak is the name of organizational culture in state-owned enterprises in Indonesia. Okay, as an introduction, I would like to convey that the context of our study is in just state-owned enterprises as a public body that acts as a development agent to support government program in realizing independence, welfare, sustainability, and equity, as well as providing added economic value in encouraging national development. Currently, state-owned enterprises are transforming not only in business, but also in cultural transformation in order to maintain their reputation and good name. Organizational culture is the basic assumptions and belief held by the organization. In addition, according to SAIN, organizational culture is a pattern of fundamental values and belief that a group learns and adopts to solve problems and produce behavioral norms. The Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises, as the person in charge of state-owned enterprises in Indonesia, has established core values in corporate culture that must be applied as guidelines for state-owned enterprises management to work well for the benefit of the nation and make the transformation of state-owned enterprises successful. Based on the circular letter of the Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises in 2020 concerning the core values of state-owned enterprises human resource, the Ministry instructs to all state-owned enterprises in Indonesia to implement these core values, namely trustworthy, competent, harmonious, loyal, adaptive, collaborative, abbreviated as akhlak. They are obliged to apply the akhlak culture in the sense of easily to transfer of talent among them because it has similar roots. Furthermore, Thoher and Agustian stated that akhlak is the primary key to getting a reputation in all fields. Implementing good akhlak will be a driving factor for good corporate action, leading to a good reputation and ultimately supporting the company's sustainability and competitiveness. So what factors are for implement state-owned enterprises culture? One of the supporting factors for the implementation of the akhlak culture is the role of the leader. Leader can influence the behavioral norms that apply to organizational members and shape the culture. In this study, authentic leadership is needed to implement akhlak culture in state-owned enterprises. Why was authentic leadership? Lately, the leadership style in the Indonesian government is characterized by a leadership style that identified as authentic leadership. For example, the president, the governor at the government level, and also the director at the corporate level. Authentic leaders lead with purpose, meaning, and values. Walumba et al. 2008 described authentic leadership as a pattern of leadership behavior to create psychological capacity and a positive ethical climate in the work environment with 4 indicators. Furthermore, the researcher assumes that the role of authentic leadership on the perception of the application of akhlak culture can be strengthened by a climate of organizational justice. The higher the organizational justice, the stronger the relationship between authentic leadership and implementing akhlak culture. It is in line with Colquitt et al. In 2001, which stated that employees will work well when they are treated well in the organization. The perception of fair treatment from the organization becomes essential for employees, which will ultimately have an impact on the functioning of the organization and employee welfare. This study focuses on distributive justice that defined as the perception of fairness related to the distribution of outcome, such as salaries, promotions, and rewards. The meaning of distributive justice at the individual level depends on what is seen at the group level. Individual reaction to some situation depends on the perception of justice from others. Therefore, this study analyzes the distributive justice climate at the group level following Nonan and Binet in 2000, who stated that climate justice is awareness at the group level about how groups are treated. Based on the explanation above, it could be summarized as follows. An authentic leader would affect the implementation of akhlak culture, then it will create a high sense of mutual trust and transparency in employees so that employees will carry out what is ordered by the leader, including implementing organizational culture in their work behavior. Moreover, a distributive justice climate would strengthen the presence of authentic leaders to increase trust and commitment, strengthen interpersonal relationship, and build loyalty. Those are the concept of akhlak culture that exists in the company today. Thus, the researcher want to see the role of distributive justice as a moderator in the relationship of authentic leadership to the dimensions of akhlak culture. Participants in this study were employees of one of the state-owned enterprise, totaling 272 employees. The analysis was carried out at the group level with 17 eligible groups included, bringing the total participant to 153 employees. The measurement process is carried out using 3 psychological scales: the authentic leadership questionnaires, the distributive justice scale, and the akhlak culture scale. Each research instrument uses a Likert scale. Data was analyzed using structural equation model based on components or variants. Data processing uses partial least square to evaluate the measurement model, outer model first, and then conducting the structural model or inner model. Data was collected individual and then aggregated into group level by using the average value from a low level to a higher level. As a justification for aggregation at the individual to group level, we conducted within group inter-rater agreement for each aggregate variable. All the variables in this study has within group inter-rater agreement with cutoff 0.7. Next, I will present the result and discussion of this study. And this is the result of the study. By conducting outer model measurement, we find convergent validity, discriminant validity, and composite reliability test. The following slide describes the measurement of the outer model to see convergent validity, discriminant validity, and composite reliability test. Based on the result of convergent validity, all measuring items have met the requirements for testing the outer loading value because there are no items below 0.6. Based on the discriminant validity test, it was found that the confidence interval value was either 2.5% or 97.5% for each item, and the variable dimension was less than 1. So it can be concluded that each construct has no problem in discriminant validity. As for the composite reliability test, it can be seen from the table that all reliability values meet the recommendation above 0.70. In addition, this slide also shows the result of R square for each endogenous latent variable as the predictive power of the structural models. After completing the outer model measurement, we continue by conducting inner model measurement. As displayed in this table, distributive justice climate has a moderator effect on the relationship between authentic leadership and akhlak culture. The beta value indicates a negative direction, meaning that The group that perceive distributive justice climate is low will strengthen the contribution of authentic leadership to akhlaq culture. Tabel 2 display each dimensions of akhlaq and show that distributive justice climate moderate the relationship between authentic leadership and akhlaq culture of trustworthy, harmonious, and collaborative. Meanwhile, for the rest of akhlaq culture, distributive justice climate has no moderation effect. In the next slide, we will discuss this result by elaborating in each dimension. In general, the distributive justice climate was proven to act as a moderator in the relationship between authentic leadership and akhlaq culture. However, the moderating role is negative. A negative beta value indicates that a low distributive justice climate will strengthen the relationship between authentic leadership of akhlaq culture and vice versa. This finding supports Skinner's theoretical conception of negative reinforcement, where Skinner states that the frequency of behavior will increase because the behavior is followed by the loss of aversive stimuli, known as negative reinforcement. Thus, to eliminate the unpleasant situation, employees will behave as expected by the company. In this case, they are implementing the akhlaq culture then. Specifically, we dissect each dimension of akhlaq to determine which dimensions can be moderated by distributive justice climate. On the one hand, the distributive justice climate significantly moderates the relationship between authentic leadership and the dimensions of akhlaq culture in negative and positive forms. Negative moderating effect on trustworthy and collaborative, it indicates the existence of self-defense mechanism in employee. It assumes that self-defense mechanism affect employees' perception of being mistreated. They tend to show expected behavior such as completing the work they are responsible for, being trusting in doing a job, doing what is said, and sticking to morals and ethics, whose behavior is in line with the concept of trustworthiness. Also, regarding the collaboration dimension, employees tend to display behavior to be accepted by the group. Thus, employees are increasingly showing open behavior in collaborating, accepting other people's ideas, enjoying working together, providing opportunities for others to contribute, and moving others to achieve common goals whose behavior is in line with the concept. While the positive mediating effect occurs in the harmonious dimension, this supports the application of the concept of social action theory in the interaction between employees and the company. It assumes that the harmonious behavior of employees is increasing, such as respecting other people regardless of their background and building a conducive work environment, because a healthy social interaction depends on perception of fairness. Thus, the more employees perceive they are being treated fairly, the implementation of the harmonious dimension will increase. On the other hand, the distributive justice climate does not moderate the relationship between authentic leadership and the dimensions of akhlaq culture in the form of competent, adaptive, and loyal. The role of authentic leadership in improving competent, adaptive, and loyal behavior as part of the implementation of akhlaq culture does not depend on the provision of salaries and promotion. It is possibly more influenced by individual factors than organizational factors such as distributive justice climate. However, this opinion still requires further research. Regarding the limitation of this study, we recommend that further research can be done by improving the akhlaq cultural instrument through massive respondent representing any sector instead on enterprises. Reconsidering about the dissemination of online questionnaires using Google Form, it is limited researchers to make sure that participants understand on how to fill out the questionnaire, and it turns researchers lost many items when analyzing the data. Thank you for watching. I get to discuss with you. Greeting, health, and success as always. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Good evening, delegates and respected stars and participants. My topic for this conference is relocating of PHVC on peak load in smart grid using wind power output and real-time pricing as objective function. And my respected guide is Dr. Tapas Patra. And these are the contents of my topic: motivation, introduction, literature survey, and PHEV, what is PHEV, and what methods and tools I have taken, and the probability distribution function and stochastic modeling, which type of modeling I have gone through. And after that, I have gone through the simulation and results and the charging pattern for large scale and small scale, and another topic is for optimization process, and after that in the end conclusion and future scope. And these are the literature survey. In literature survey I have found that lots of research gone through this topic, and I have taken some 5 vital topics for further research. These are the my literature survey, and this is the motivation. In next 2 decades, so we are approaching that the completely exhaust of gasoline and petroleum sources, and oil resource is going to be exhaust in the part of region. And there have been many studies in PHEV's impact on current power grid. This can be classified as vehicle performance studies, supply adequacy, vehicle to grid studies, and distribution system impact studies. This project is focused on large-scale PHEV's integration into power grid, charging loads, and potential effects for the operation of the grid. This is the introduction. Consequently, cost of all kinds of merchandise increases nowadays. For every vehicle owner, more attention is paid to for fuel efficiency to save cost on gasoline. As a result, the MPG, what is generally for miles per gallon value, becomes an important criterion factor for customers who plan to purchase a new car. Commonly for internal combustion engine vehicles, high MPG value usually means lower engine displacement, slow acceleration, or compact size. To better utilize power from internal combustion engine, extra battery packs we can take and electric motor are installed in electric vehicle. Such electric vehicles are called hybrid electric vehicles. Then next, what is generally a PHEV? Generally, a PHEV is the hybrid electric vehicle that can be charged from on or board or directly from the grid. That is called PHEV. And how does it works? It works with the external sources of battery pack and gas station. It have 2 or 3 multiple sources for driving the car. And these are the example of PHEV: IFearpworld, Honda Clarity PHEV, and Toyota Price Prime. What the method I have taken and tools I have taken. Recharging battery outside home is the another problem, and battery cost and weight and size is the problem of electric vehicle in nowadays. Currently, PHEVs are only suitable for short distance commuting. Means we can use it for short distance traveling. Besides, the retail price is much higher than that normal compact vehicles. So the only way to analyze long distance pure electric vehicle impact on the grid is simulation. We can go for the probabilistic normal distribution, stochastic modeling method, and it is introduced to stimulate PHEV's load to the grid under different penetration level. In stochastic approach, charging characteristics should be generated by probabilistic distribution of variables. We have taken three main sources and 3 main criteria for the charging the battery, that is state of charge, another is vehicle arrival and departure time, and next one is the battery full charge time. After the simulation in small scale, my model is remodified for large scale simulation, and result from large scale simulation shows that the 2 load peaks would appear due to PHEV charging and have a huge effect on the grid. So the optimization process, considering real-time price and on-per output data, is necessary for the following 3 reasons. Why we should go for the optimization? That is peak load shifting, when the load is impacting the grid on for peak time, and another for frequency and voltage stability, and last one is the utilization of renewable energy. In this project, we have implemented renewable energy as the extra sources also. What is the stochastic modeling of PHEVs? Public transportation, we have taken 2 types of vehicles. One is public transportation vehicle, another is a private type of vehicles. And for public transportation vehicle, we have taken BID E6 as the reference model, and for that we have designed so many mathematical formula, and that is SOC. What is SOC? SOC is the state of charge, that is the percentage of energy that remains in the battery, and CAP is the capacity of the vehicle's battery, and if we multiply capacity with the SOC, then we can know the remaining energy in that battery. The battery capacity need to be charged by formulated capacity substituted by capacity into SOC. This is the formula for battery capacity needed to be charged. For electric buses, we have taken for SOC, we have taken normal distribution, probability distribution, and we have taken some arrival and departure time. And according to that, we have designed one equation, and this is the TCM and CS 100 kilowatt, and CS 60 kilowatt are the charging speed for 100 kilowatt and 60 kilowatt charger respectively. The unit of charging speed is per minute. And these are the equation: arrival time, departure time, and according to that, our charging station how load peaks that is varies. And this is the private vehicle charging pattern. BYD is chosen as the private vehicle charging pattern, and we have taken two types of car, that is family sedan and SUV. Private vehicles main function is commuting, so charging point starts when they arrive at working place or arrive home. The state of charge, arrival time, departure time are considered into account, and the equation can be derived as public transportation vehicle charging pattern. The standard deviation is said to be 45 and 60 minutes for day and night time charging respectively. 10 kilowatt and 2 kilowatt three-phase chargers are used for the sedan and SUV respectively. These are the time schedule for electric bus. We have the average daily mileage for the bus is 93 to 125 miles, and for according to this table we have taken charging schedule, and the standard deviation for bus is set to 10%. And the electric, after simulation, we have seen that this type of load curve is seeing in the grid. For taxis, we have taken according to same principle of buses, we have taken equation, and the parameters for charging the taxis are listed here. And the after simulation of taxis, bus, and all type of vehicle, we have got this type of load in the grid. After that, the results for results, we have taken 200 buses and 500 taxis for the low scale simulation, and from the result we have got the peak time is for 1049 am for 14.3 megawatt, and the daytime peak is higher than night one. And from figure 3, that is from taxi loads, peaks are located at around 2:36 p.m. and 11:36 am. The peak load is 19.4 megawatt, and taxi is the only type of vehicles with their batteries charged at a large scale at night. At the conclusion, the subtotal load peak is 27.1 megawatt at 11:42 am. So here we are saying there is large number of impact on the grid. And this is the simulation for private type of vehicles, and this time schedule we have taken for private vehicle charging, and standard deviation is set for 50%. Mean value is 50%, standard deviation is 10%. And here the strict note we have taken: owners of PHEVs are suggested not to deeply discharge their battery. This is the load curve for private vehicles in small scale. This type of load is simulating for the small scale, and this is the subtotal PHEV load curve for private vehicle and public transportation vehicle, and this is also subtotal PHEV load curve. This type of load is seeing in the grid. This is the results for private vehicles in small scale simulation. We have taken 10,000 private sedans and 6,000 private SUV. Loads of private vehicle take the largest part of all type of electric vehicles. Its load peak appears at 8:59 am, and its value is about 25.7 megawatt. In subtotal, the load peak is 11:35 am, and the peak value is now of 31.6 megawatt. If we consider for buses and cars in large scale, these are the reference we have taken for 2017. Total amount of taxis and vehicles are 1.259, and for now 2020 3.455, and if we will predict for 2030, that is 46.437. We have taken here peak research PIKE research report for analyzing the vehicles in large scale. And between 2017 and 2020, the annual growth rate for public buses and taxis is 40%. The average growth rate is reduced to 20% from 2020 to 2030. The growth rate of private PHEVs is expected to be more evenly distributed over the next 2 decades. These are the report for simulation. If we will go through the simulation in large scale, the total number of PHP will be loop commands significantly reduce calculation efficiency as a result to save computation time. And for large scale, we have taken Monte Carlo simulation method. And to save even more computing time, the time step is increased from 1 minute to 6 to 7 minutes. The basic simulation method remains unchanged after modification. It was possible to obtain a subtotal load curve for all PHPs in 2017, 2020, and 2030. This is the expected load curve in 2070. This is the load curve for 2017 and expected for 2020, according to our calculation and simulation. And this is the load curve prediction in 2020 and 2030. That means that if we will charge in large number or large scale number, then this much of impact will be in the grid. So therefore, we will go for the optimization process. These are the results for large scale. After 10 years of development, PHP would take 30% share of all kind of vehicles. That also means that its charging load would become a considerable part on the grid. Its peaks known at would be 263.56 billion watt. Compared to load curve in 2020, loads in the evening and morning after commuting hour increase evidently. That means load private vehicle become more and more important. In contrast, load peak in midnight becomes less significant. Now we were going for optimization to reduce the impact on the grid. We have taken two processes. So that is, one process is real-time pricing according to real-time pricing, and another one is for wind power output. This is the reference regional price we have taken for the real-time pricing optimization process. And these are the mathematics equation, and general objective function is the real-time pricing cost, and these are the constants for the charging period. And this is the optimized load curve for three types of vehicle. After optimization process, according to real-time pricing, we have got this result. This is shown that the peak time is distributed among the throughout the day. And that means we are not getting the peak load at a certain instant of time. This is the subtotal optimized load curve according to real-time pricing. And another is the load optimization according to wind power output curve. We have taken one wind power output curve for reference, and that wind power output is utilized for the charging the vehicles. These are the main objective function we have taken for the wind power output curve and constants. And it is the final conclusion report, final conclusion results of after optimization. Here it is shown that the after optimization, it is shown that the peak load is distributed throughout the day, and here we are not getting any certain instant of load for grid. After optimization, we got the results, and the reference result price curve is from 9 AM to 11. After optimization, the load curve successfully avoids the peak period. These loads are also shifted to the afternoon before departure. When the wind power output is curve is considered, more vehicle charging loads are fulfilled when the wind output is high. Conclusion is the small scale results show that there is peak load in certain time of day and night. Furthermore, it is adequate for charging private vehicles. These two factors suggest that there is sufficient potential and flexibility to other coordinate PHEV charging in the smart grid. First, the optimization process takes into the account for reference regional price. This optimization assists PHEV owners in saving money on their utility bills. Charging load peaks, on the other hand, are shifted to relieve load demand pressure on the grid. Second, the wind power output curve is considered in the optimization process for the following reasons. Demand side response is applied to the charging loads. Dispatching charging loads with excess wind power output could help maintain system stability without interfering with the output for other power plants. And for future scope, if V2G means vehicle to grid study is further imposed, then it can be included that the owner may be able to earn money by selling energy from idle vehicles. Solar power will be considered in the optimization process for constructing a hybrid solar wind system. Using a PHEV battery as a storage medium, excess solar energy during the day and excess wind energy at the night could be better utilized. It would be a win-win situation in PHEV. A PHEV battery charging on demand could add the integration of renewable energy. And these are the references I have taken for this research. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Uttam, for your wonderful presentation. Please share your credentials and the nice work on renewable energy. We would like to get in touch with you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so this is a joint work with Dr. Jason Petrovic in the Department of Business Administration at St. Vance College in US. So just to start about the main idea is the goal is to estimate labor supply elasticities, which is a very important topic in econometrics. There's a lot of research done in this area recently. And well, the goal is to estimate the labor supply elasticity, which is, we call it LSE, which is in fact the kind of the difference in the labor supply, which is worked hours divided by the percentage of the difference of wages. So basically, it's we call it a measure of societal trends, which means shrinking the supply elasticity, for example, of married women. It has also some kind of impact or influence in policy decisions, such as changing tax rates. Well, the previous work was typically provided on point estimates at a certain time. And usually we use what we call the instrumental variables are used to account what we call endogeneity in wages, means there is a kind of where there's a correlation between the predictor and the response variable. Basically work on them mostly in regression analysis. So the idea came with analyzing a data set, which is what we call the current population survey CPS data. And it is administrated by what we call the US Census Bureau. It's about 60,000 household monthly. So our data contains around 250,000 respondents from 1988 to 2014, which kind of includes 2 responses per individual in consecutive years. So that's kind of really what we call sparse data instead of dense data. Here also, the data include what we call variables like wage, hours worked, and covariance. And we consider as wage as the endogenous variable. So what is the goal? The goal is basically to use this current population survey data to estimate the labor elasticity. And we say LSE of T because it's based on time. So this is from, as I said, the years are from 1988 to 2014, what the time here we consider as a time series from 1988 to 2014. So what the challenges in this work is, first we have what we call design sparse data because we have only 2 respondents per individual. And also we use this kind of ingenuity, which is wage, which basically has correlation with the work hours, with the response. So I'm a little bit sorry if this is kind of too much technical, but I can't escape it. That's how the idea of my work. I'm trying to explain it in a way that can be understandable, but if you still have more questions and more details, I'll be happy to provide. So here is what we call the classical regression. And the only difference is we call functional data because instead of scalar response, scalar predictor, we have here a functional response, which is basically those are curves. we can call those as curves. So the curves YT, this is the response. Our model is based on scalar functional predictors, which is all the XPT. And this is an indigenous variable, the WT, and also based on scalar predictors. Just want to go too much on detail. The idea is indigenous variables are such as there is a correlation between this variable and the error. And the exogenous functional covariates, basically where they are kind of not correlated. That's why we say the covariance between those predictors and the errors are equal to 0. And additionally, we assume that all functional variables are observed sparsely and with noise, and that's based on the data. That's why we assumed this kind of condition. So the idea of the estimation here is we're not going to develop any theory. However, we kind of use some packages to be able to kind of estimate this, what we call functional concurrent model. So first of all, we identify what we call the appropriate instrumental variables, those that are exogenous and correlated with the instrumental variable, what we call here WT. W is because of wages. Okay, that we call the wage is the instrumental variable. And then what we call this is a PACE method, which is implemented in R in order to input those response variable, the WT, and the other functional predictors. And to design, this is for denser grids. Then what we can do is to perform what we call this two-stage least square estimation on inputted functional data using what we call the penalized approach, because this is how it was before, using the PFFR refund package. And finally, in mostly functional data analysis, we use what we call the B-spline-based expansions for functional coefficients in order to kind of make the estimation accurate. So basically, this is how the idea of the two-stage functional data is. Basically, we have our the predictor WT, which is the instrumental variable, will be regressed based on the other predictors, which means the functional predictor, the XPT, and the scalar predictors. And also based on other instrumental variables, we call this as a ZRT. Then what we do with the second stage is to predict this WT based on the method that I just explained earlier. Then we kind of inject it in the second expression. And basically, our goal is to estimate this functional coefficients alpha t. Okay, so this is the two-stage. And once we perform this and we use the basic, those kind of procedures, we finally we will be able to find the kind of estimated alpha t. So what we expect is going to be a function. So we're going to draw functions. Okay, those the LSE. Okay, so labor supply is going to be estimated as a function. And here our data is going to be the, as I mentioned, the current population survey data. So here we apply it to this data. And what we usually in econometrics, we use the log of the response. And we kind of log also of the predictor. So here I used the H, who looks here, the number of hours worked. So we want to predict the number of hours worked based on the after-tax wage, which is our instrumental variable, and also based on two predictors, which is age and non-wage earnings. That's why P from 1 to 2, and three scalar predictors, where they kind of represent occupation, education, and number of kids. And the model is estimated separately for married versus unmarried females. So basically what we find here is kind of, we can see that this is the estimation, what we call the alpha T, the labor supply elasticity, it goes kind of, it kind of increases a little bit until 2003, and then goes a little bit down and becomes negative. So, which means that kind of here, that's basically closer to the same shape of the unmarried males. However, for the married females, it can go here a little bit up. So the kind of the magnitude is a little bit bigger. And basically, for some reason, those are basically the same year, around 2002, 2003. And then they go down, and this kind of basically becomes negative around 2007 for both unmarried and married females. So it looks that the married and unmarried females have a little bit that kind of the same shape. I mean, the interpretation here is, in order to consume goods and services, individuals must earn money by giving up some of their leisure time to work. So when the hourly wage changes, an individual experiences both an income and substitution effects. So basically, if we suppose the hourly wages increases, okay? So an hour of work now earns more consumption than before the wage increase. One possible response is to work fewer hours to kind of maintain the same amount of consumption as before the wage increase, but consume more leisure time than before. In fact, theory does not predict whether the income effect or the substitution effect dominates. A positive labor supply elasticity implies that the substitution effect is larger, while a negative labor supply elasticity implies the income effect is larger. In fact, I am not a specialist in econometrics, but I'll be happy to answer questions with connection with my collaborator who is a specialist in econometrics. My goal as a statistician is to be able to kind of use statistical models to kind of be able to answer questions related to specific topics. So this is basically the story of my presentation today. This kind of future work is basically, we can do a little bit more theoretical work if time allows. We will basically work on the convergence rate and consistency of our estimator. We also can use some weak instruments, because in the reality is we have also some kind of other instruments, we call them weak instruments. We can also consider model-based imputation, which is kind of account for uncertainty introduced by inputting spice curves. That's another idea. And the data analysis, we can add further instruments, let's say race, geographic indicators, etc. We can also account for selection bias. Well, not everyone in the CPS data works. That's another issue. And also we consider some functional historical models. That's kind of a work in progress. I will send my email address, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So my topic for the paper was need for staff training as a part of strategic costing in tourism-oriented restaurant industry in Uttarakhand. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I'm Anisha Khanduja. I'm a research scholar from Guru Ram Rai University, Dehradun. So for the introduction, tourism is one of the fastest growing industries in the world and a major contributor to global GDP. It has to contend with dynamic and competitive environment in today's world. Uttarakhand's tourist economy relies heavily on establishment of hotels and eateries. Because of the fierce competition in this field, they need an experienced personnel to succeed. If a restaurant doesn't take time to explain new work or new job to its workers, they might end up under-training their workforce. This can lead to a number of outcomes. That is, like, your customer is dissatisfied with the restaurant's level of service, an employee who becomes frustrated with the company, and thus they have to then lower their service level. In order for individuals to be successful in the workplace, learning and development must be an ongoing process. It has been long acknowledged that profits can be maximized with adequate training of employees. So we did a literature review, and so that's what it says. When it comes to the quality of service, it all comes down to the staff. To ensure a hotel's long-term viability and growth, these attributes are essential. There are several ways in which staff training is necessarily including boosting productivity and motivating and inspiring workers by giving them with all of this information they need to do their task and help them appreciate how important their position is. When a company has well-trained personnel, it becomes more effective and productive. Restaurants that are acing their businesses usually make educating their employees a priority. The tourism sector has a significant impact on the country's economy, social, environmental growth. It employs 1 out of every 11 people. Tourists drawn to this state of Uttarakhand are drawn for its natural beauty, will find plenty of options in Uttarakhand. However, it is source of discontentment when the tourism business is unable to grow in tandem with the natural growth of tourist destinations. So the objective of the study has been to review the need for employees training as a part of strategic costing in restaurant industry of Uttarakhand, to study the impact of customer satisfaction on the F&B industry in recent years. Research methodology has been, we have done secondary research, we have done secondary data sources have been used to do this research, and there were like very few interviews which were taken. So the findings of the study are, after we conducted it, are the ability to maintain a high level of customer satisfaction over time is dependent on development of personal strength. If a company has a history of providing exceptional customer behavior, so a customer service, it will only invite its employees to practice it in the kind of advanced training that comes with promotions. Because of the high incidence of employee turnover in the hospitality business in Uttarakhand, the state stands to gain from the development of exceptional employees. Of the tourism oriented enterprises, as a result of the tourism oriented enterprises, Uttarakhand's training system, workers' communication, knowledge and skills scope, performance and motivation all improve, and all improves the overall success of the organization. As a general rule, it has also been shown that individuals who don't take these trainings seriously, don't put them into practice regularly, err repeatedly, and give negative feedback to superiors, colleagues, and customers. And this also tends to make them less successful in their jobs. The cuisine of Uttarakhand isn't as well known as that of other parts of the nation. Despite the fact that there are a number of distinct regional dishes over here, tourists flock to Uttarakhand's two regions for natural beauty and delectable cuisine. As a result of its organic and indigenous ingredients, the cuisine of Uttarakhand is greatest in India. It has an impact on the area's tourism. Uttarakhand is host to a lot of Ayurvedic and organic food ingredients, which are also beneficial for the body. So this was a small survey which was conducted. So we asked the locals if there was availability of local food, largely local food. So about 90% said that it is not available, 4% said yes, it is available, and 6% were not sure about it. If tourists in Uttarakhand demand for local regional food, 56% said yes, 34% said no, and 10% were not sure. Also, tourists are attracted to local regional cuisine. About 78% were of the opinion that yes, they are. 10% said no, and 12% was not sure. So this shows that the local people have to do a lot more to, train the staff to prepare good local food, where staff training again comes into picture, so that they can promote tourism and cuisine of Uttarakhand. Local regional cuisine of an area helps in attracting more tourists to that place. Uttarakhand can easily get local regional cuisine. It will help in promoting culinary tourism. It does also to increase culinary tourism. Also, employee training becomes of strategic importance. The better the quality of the local cuisine, more people will get attracted towards the restaurant, helping also increase the footfall of the restaurant. The restaurant industry is very independent or very dependent on service quality and customer satisfaction. The best way to improve customer satisfaction is to make sure that the services is of very good quality. The higher the customer satisfaction, the higher is the footfall in a restaurant. There is more word of mouth marketing. This in turn has a direct relationship on the profitability of the restaurant, which is a major part of strategic cost management. Staff training becomes an essential part of strategic costing. A well-trained staff always helps in customer retention. Staff training helps increase the quality of food as well as the service quality at a restaurant. This reduces the cost of acquiring new customers. The employee turnover also reduces with staff training. It helps in bonding between teams and loyalty increases. A reduction in employee turnover, which is a major problem faced by the restaurant industry, helps in reducing the overall cost of acquiring new employees, and also then it helps in reducing the overall cost of the restaurant. Thus, staff training plays an important part in strategic costing. So now we come to the conclusion of the study. Generation of profit is the basic step for any business to survive in this competitive edge. In most situations, investors are not investing in enterprises that do not generate sufficient profit for the value of their investment. The restaurant industry can be quite profitable, yet no individual establishment is guaranteed to generate a profit. Some establishments do, while others do not. So that a profitable business may be continued, the concepts necessary to keep the restaurant's costs under control must be implemented. Implementing those rules will not only ensure a profit, but as a successful restaurant has other important features. But if a profit has to be maintained, they're absolutely important. The restaurant sector is becoming more competitive as a result of its growth. Because of the fierce competition, profit margins for small and medium-sized restaurants are very low. For such tiny business restaurants, employees training as a part of strategic cost management can play a very critical role in generating profits. So this was my presentation.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Sarifa, a final year student from the School of Business and Management at the Bandung Institute of Technology. Following the technological advancements, I have looked into large companies' management of client customer data against data breach prevention. As an overview, 6 main points will be covered: a brief introduction, followed by the details of the selected companies, then the methodology and research objectives, closed by the results, conclusion, and limitations. One of the most at-risk industries in the finance and insurance industry. Data breaches present unique challenges for an organization's information security function. If data is not kept and stored securely, the company can become an easy target for cyber criminals. Companies must be able to safeguard all their customers' sensitive data as technology improves along with the attacker's abilities. 3 of the top 20 United Kingdom's largest companies, ranked by their 2020 revenue, as listed on statistica.com by Clark 2022. In order to further define the scope of research, 3 companies were understood to qualify as the large companies under the Companies Act 2006, Part 15, Chapter 12, Section 465 of the UK government. This required that the companies to fulfill at least two of the following criteria to have an overturn of more than 36 million in revenue, a balance sheet of more than 18 million, or more than 250 employees. The revenue, balance sheet, and employee nominal correct to 2020 are displayed under each respective company, HSBC, Lloyds, and Barclays. Each of them have fulfilled at least two of the previously mentioned criteria. The information was collected and analyzed through strictly online desk-based online research with the hoped outputs to be a comparison matrix of each company's case details. On the screen, you can see the selection process of choosing the companies. From this research, I objectified to find the synthesis of changes made by the years of large companies' data breach prevention management strategies, and to document the actions taken by large companies in the event of a data breach, to indicate which of the prevention strategies may be applicable in the future. The results and conclusions show that there is a finding matrix of 4 cases of the HSBC from 2010 to 2018. Lloyds had 2 cases from 2017 to 2018, and Barclays had 3 cases from 2014 to 2017. These showed that most of the common actions done were changes in security details, offering complementary services, and work with an internal team or authorities to pursue the criminal responsible. In conclusion, post-data breach actions were far more apparent than what was each company's data breach prevention management strategies. The cases available did not present stable or uniform dates in which security progression could be shown. Thus, the limitations that showed internal prevention strategies are generally undisclosed to the public because they are confidential and classified files, and they are also unable to indicate the potentially applicable strategies for future reference. That concludes my presentation today. I am open to any questions or constructive criticism you may have. Thank you.
So my name is Ajay Prakash, a research scholar at Vignan University. I have done my project under the guidance of G. Parimla ma'am. My project title was Prediction of Liver Disease, Hepatic Encephalopathy using machine learning algorithm. These are my contents. The abstract of my project was I was dealing with a disease, hepatic encephalopathy. Basically, it is a brain disease which is caused by the liver impurities. So, by the literature survey that I have found that there is a problem with the root cause of the disease. So I have focused on my research on the root cause of the disease. So I have taken the liver parameters to identify the problem, to resolve the problem of the hepatic encephalopathy. The existing system was based on the MRI scans of the brains, but before going to the brain, the root cause can be eradicated from the liver itself. So I have taken the liver samples and I have done my research on that. And this was my project's problem statement. And to remove the root cause of the disease, the proposed system was that I have taken 3 parameters, which is bilirubin, alanine aminotransferase, aspartate aminotransferase are the main parameters which I have to diagnose a patient. This was my structure to process the data set in the machine learning field, the domain. The main algorithm that I have considered was the SVM algorithm, which is support vector algorithm, in which the samples which I have taken are classified into 4 grades. Those are A, B, C, D. A person having a grade A have more vulnerability of getting the hepatic encephalopathy. These are the results that I have got, but I have taken different algorithms in which I am getting the best from the decision tree and further proceeding to support vector mission. And this was the graphical representation. And the final analysis of my result was by taking more number of samples and a person having more bilirubin imbalances and the alanine transferase enzyme having the more vulnerability to get the disease. And I'm giving the data from the from the web page to the Google spreadsheet. From there, I will be analyzing the data. And these are the advantages of my project. And the future scope of this project is we can attach a electronic device to the patient where we can get all the data to diagnose the patient for the further diagnosis from the hospital management side and from the patient side. And my conclusion was, if we remove the problem from the root cause, then we can take off the problem from the bigger problems, which is the brain disease. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm Haruna Katayama from Hiroshima University, Japan. Today, I would like to talk about analog tachyon condensation using Josephson transmission line. This is the outline of this talk. First, I briefly review the background of this research and explain the research purpose. Then, I will describe the model system to study analog tachyon condensation and show its observation scheme. Finally, I will devote to conclude my talk. Tachyon is a hypothetical particle that always travels faster than light. Tachyon would exhibit the unusual property of increasing in speed as their energy decreases, and would require infinite energy to slow down to the speed of light. Tachyon particles with imaginary
according to something
and exist at the maximum of the potential, but they are unstable. Therefore, a tachyon condensation process occurs, which transitions to a potential minimum and stabilizes in order to acquire a real mass. This tachyon condensation explains the formation of matter in an early universe. Tachyon condensation has been highly refined and developed theoretically. However, it is difficult to verify the tachyon condensation during the early universe in a real system. Therefore, it is expected to verify it in a laboratory system. Here, we propose an experimentally feasible scheme to study tachyon condensation using externally tunable superconducting transmission line. This is our research purpose in this talk. Here is our strategy. The question of how to create a tachyon state is solved by realizing an inverted pendulum potential. On the other hand, the question of how to observe the tachyon condensation is solved by observing the fluxing and antifluxing that appears in the rolling tachyon of the condensation process. First, we explained how to generate a tachyon state. As I mentioned just before, tachyonic state can be generated by realizing the inverted pendulum potential. This can be achieved in transmission line with superconducting asymmetric nonlinear elements, as shown here. These parts are superconducting elements called Josephson junctions. These are arranged asymmetrically. The potential of this system consists of two parts with different periods due to such asymmetry. As alpha is increased from there, the potential changes like this. The potential changes like this is from a stable state to an unstable state. This is a mechanism of tachyonic state formation. When Snell elements, which such as potential are connected, they form a transmission line capable of transmitting electrical signals. The circuit is governed by the circuit equation. Ultimately, this equation becomes a certain equation called the double sign-Gordon equation. This equation has a certain solution that propagates stably along the transmission line. Suppose now that the system was initially in a tachyon state. In this case, pair production of the fluoxetine and antifluoxetine occurs as shown like this. This fluoxetine state has a stable bottom of the buried due to friction and becomes the plasma oscillation. Since this can be regarded as a tachyon condensation, the observation of the fluoxetine pair confirms the tachyon condensation. In conclusion, we have proposed an experimentally feasible method of studying tachyon condensation using a superconducting transmission line with Snell, which provides the externally tunable Josephson potential needed to generate the inverted pendulum potential in which the tachyon resides. This system produces a fluoxetine and antifluoxetine pair in tachyon condensation, where the tachyon transition to the vacuum. Therefore, tachyon condensation can be confirmed by detecting them. In the presence of dispersion, these fluoxetine and antifluoxetine decays into Josephson plasma waves, corresponding to the true vacuum. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Haruna, for your wonderful presentation. Good work and good topic indeed of your research work, a new and novel topic. Thank you.